Hi, I'm the Octopus Lady. You're watching Alien Ocean, and let's talk about boxer crabs today, shall we? Now, you may have heard of these guys before. They're ornery little fellas who go around punching their enemies in the face. Bam! Whack! Pow! Right in the kisser! They're the lightweight boxing champions of the world. Not the Italian stallions, but the bust-face-tion crustaceans. And that's because they don't fight with ordinary boxing gloves. They fight with sea anemones they hold in their claws, which have tentacles that are full of stinging cells, giving the boxer crab's left hook a little extra oomph. And the bond between the crab and its anemones is unbreakable. They share a mutualistic symbiotic relationship with each other, which means they all benefit from being in it. The crab benefits because they get to fight with souped-up boxing gloves, and the anemones benefit because the crab makes sure they have easy and consistent access to food. It's all very Rocky Balboa, you know? It's like the crab is Rocky and the anemones are Adrian and whatever his coach's name is. I've never actually seen the movie Rocky before. Anyway, before I get too caught up in talking about boxer crabs, let's get the usual stuff out of the way first. So while there is a specific species of crab that's been given the common name of boxer crab, there's technically a whole group of crabs that carry around anemones in their claws, and I'm just going to be calling all of them boxer crabs. They're unsurprisingly within the phylum of Arthropoda, the subphylum Crustacea, the class Malacostraca, the order Decapoda, the infraorder Brachyura, the family Xanthidae? And then finally, in the subfamily Polydectinae is where you will find the boxer crabs. Phew, that was a lot of taxonomy. I guess you could say that was taxing on me. Stupid! And by the way, as longtime fans of my channel know, I like to think of this class of arthropods, Malacostraca, as the mafia gang of the sea because it is full of crustaceans who would make excellent mobsters. But we're going to come back to that. Boxer crabs are found throughout the Indian and West Pacific Oceans, with most of them living in shallow littoral zones. Littoral meaning relating to or situated on the shore of the sea or a lake, although boxer crabs that are part of the genus Tunibia? Are always found in waters deeper than 70 meters. Boxer crabs are also nocturnal, so they spend their days hiding under rocks and only come out at night to forage. Remember this is going to be important later. In terms of how long they've been on this planet, well, that's a bit of a story. See, I had two questions I wanted to answer. When did boxer crabs first show up? And how long have they been in symbiosis with anemones? And conveniently, a paper that was released just last year seemed to answer both of these questions, but the authors used phylogenetics to do their research. And phylogenetics confuses and frightens me. So I reached out to Dr. Brenen Wynd of Southeastern Louisiana University to ask if he'd be willing to assist me with this, because he's a phylogeneticist, and he said yes, which was so nice of him. So I sent him that paper along with this other paper that talks about seemingly the only fossil of a boxer crab we've ever found, and he read them and then told me that according to these papers, boxer crabs have been around for at least 11 million years, and they could have been around as far back as 43 million years ago, but we'd need more fossils to confirm that. He also told me that boxer crabs have probably been carrying anemones since they first showed up, so the relationship they share with anemones is likely as old as the boxer crabs themselves. So that means boxer crabs would go somewhere around this section of the fossil timeline, I guess? Whatever, I'm not even trying to make this legible anymore. Wha-bam! That's where boxer crabs live now, and everyone say, thanks, Dr. Wynd, for helping me out with this. Side note, even though it seems like most species of boxer crabs carry around sea anemones, there have been reports of boxer crabs carrying around nudibranchs instead, and also sea cucumbers. And while we have some ideas why they carry anemones, we have no idea what they're doing with these guys. Like, not even a clue. Anyway, boxer crabs are deeply committed to their relationship with anemones. According to this paper, which is a review of all the academic literature about boxer crabs up until the year 2022, there has only been one report of a boxer crab in the wild being seen without anemones. This strongly indicates that boxer crabs are in an obligatory relationship with their anemones, which, okay, review time. The partnership between anemones and boxer crabs is an example of symbiosis. And I've talked about symbiosis a bunch on this channel, the most recent time being in my last video. So we're just going to speed run this explanation. Symbiosis is a close biological relationship between two or more organisms. If you live on or in another organism, you're what's called a symbiont. And if you got something living on or in you, you're what's called a host. And the three most well-known kinds of symbiosis are mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Want to learn more? Go check out my video about brittle stars. Now, to categorize symbiosis even further, there's obligate symbiosis and facultative facultative symbiosis. Obligate symbiosis is when one or more participants, quote, cannot complete their life cycle unless they are in a symbiotic relationship with the other. This means they might die without their symbiotic partner, but it can also mean that they get stuck at some point in their life cycle and won't be able to grow into adulthood. Like, I'm pretty sure there are some parasites who can't reach sexual maturity until they find a host. Facultative symbiosis means that the participants can usually survive and mature just fine, even if they're not in symbiosis with each other. And this can be asymmetrical, which seems to be the case here. Boxer crabs are in obligate symbiosis with anemones, but anemones are in facultative symbiosis with boxer crabs. Since it seems to be very difficult to find boxer crabs who are anemoneless in the wild, it's likely the crabs cannot complete their life cycle without them. But every species of sea anemones we've seen carried by boxer crabs have been found in the wild, living by themselves without any issues, as you can see in all these pictures. So since boxer crabs seem to desperately rely on their anemones for their survival, how do they even find anemones in the first place? Certain species of boxer crabs seem to be both visually and chemically attracted to their preferred anemone species. There was an experiment done in a lab where boxer crabs were placed in tanks that had two sealed plastic containers in it, one holding sea anemones and the other one empty, and the boxer crabs went for the sea anemone container every single time, even if they were already in possession of anemones. In another experiment, they instead used two black bags that were permeable to water, one with anemones and one without, so the crabs couldn't see the anemones, but they could smell them. And it was the same thing. They'd always be crawling all over the anemone bag and ignoring the empty one. In fact, there were even a few times in this experiment where the researchers put an anemone-less boxer crab in the tank, left for a while, and came back to find the bag ripped open and the crab already holding two anemones. Which, you weren't supposed to do that, you little troublemaker. Those aren't for you. Put them back. We've also seen how boxer crabs acquire anemones. When they find one they want, they go through 3 stages of removing it from wherever it's attached: probing, detachment, and readjustment. In the probing stage, it kind of sounds like the crab just gives the anemone a massage. Quote, the crab touched the anemone stalk, that's this part, and pedal disc, that's this part, with its first walking legs and third maxillipeds, that's these parts, administrating tactile stimulation to the anemone, which leads to its relaxation. Doesn't that sound like a massage? That sounds like a massage. In the detachment stage, the crab slides its walking legs between the anemone and the surface to, detach it, and then in the readjustment stage, it just snatches up the anemone real quick, and then, still using its walking legs and maxillipeds, will readjust the anemone until it's in the optimal position for the crab to then grab with its claw. And get a load of this! Boxer crabs always hold their anemones upside down. I didn't even realize that until I started working on this video, because if you're not paying attention to a boxer crab's anemones, you probably wouldn't even notice. But yeah, they're totally upside down. Now, being in a relationship with someone for at least 11 million years is gonna change you, right? Hopefully for the better, but there are still some parts of you that you might lose along the way. And in the case of the boxer crab, it has almost completely lost the use of its claws. And that's a big deal. Crabs use their claws for everything. Eating, fighting, grooming, burrowing, mating sometimes even. But boxer crabs have the saddest and most pathetic excuses for claws. They're so thin and weak and small, and they literally can't do anything but hold anemones. Seriously, in labs where researchers have taken the anemones from boxer crabs, the boxer crabs couldn't even pick up food with their claws. They had to use their first set of walking legs to shovel it into their mouth. That is the most basic use of claws, to pick stuff up, and boxer crabs can't even do that. Isn't that sad? It's hard to get a good photo of a boxer crab's claws because they're always holding anemones, but you can kind of see them here. Do you see how small they are? I want to compare them to the claws of another crab we've had on this channel, the coconut crab, because their claws are so big and powerful that they can easily crush human fingers, but coconut crabs are not part of the infraorder of Brachyura, the group of crustaceans that is considered to be the true crabs, and boxer crabs are, so it seems unfair to compare them. Although now that I think about it, how does a supposedly fake crab like the coconut crab have better claws than an actual true crab? How did that shake out? Well, that's actually a good question, and it's going to take a little explaining. So you know jellyfish and siphonophores, right? They're both part of the phylum Cnidaria. They both have specialized cells in their tentacles that they use to sting other creatures. Some jellyfish and siphonophores have stings so dangerous that they can severely injure or even kill an adult human person. I'm sorry, look at me rambling on and on. You already know all this because you've already watched my videos about jellyfish and siphonophores, right? Right? Anyway, what gives a stinging cell its sting, in cnidarians anyway, is this cellular structure called a nematocyst. And nematocysts are capable of being very sticky and very stabby, which is really helpful if you're trying to catch yourself some prey. And guess who else is a cnidarian and has nematocysts in their tentacles? Sea anemones. Boxer crabs have been seen using sea anemones to gather food for themselves in two different ways. One, as the crab is walking around, stuff just sort of collects on the sea anemone's tentacles, which the crab can then pick through and consume whatever it deems edible. And two, they've been seen smacking living prey with their anemones, like small fish and amphipods, which stuns them, and then it's lunchtime for the crab and its anemones. And that pretty nicely sums up the mutualistic symbiotic relationship that these two share. This one gets to be one punch man, and these two never have to worry about finding food. Except, that's a lie. And all that stuff I said in the beginning about how the crab shares a caring, unbreakable bond with its anemones, that was a lie too. Boxer crabs and their anemones are not in a mutualistic relationship with each other. They're in a parasitic one, and it's not the anemones that are the parasites. It's the crab! Duh, duh, duh! Plot twist, this crab isn't Rocky Balboa, it's Jake LaMotta, and its two anemones are like his brother and his wife. I'm referencing Martin Scorsese's 1980 film Raging Bull, which I have seen multiple times. Please leave a comment if you have too, so I know somebody got this reference. But what I'm trying to say is, the boxer crab is monstrously awful to its anemones. Remember all those pictures of free-living anemones I showed you earlier? Well, they're all way bigger than a boxer crab. So how do you think it's possible for such a tiny creature to always be in possession of two anemones that are perfectly sized for it? Do you think when the anemones get too big, the boxer crab just places them down gently somewhere and goes off to find smaller ones? Nope! Boxer crabs are kleptoparasites, which is a type of parasite that steals food from its victims. And this is a fantastic way to feed yourself, as it's more advantageous than foraging or hunting and takes way less time and energy. If any food ever ends up in the anemone's tentacles, the boxer crab will not hesitate to take it from them. And if the anemone does manage to swallow some food, the crab will reach down their throat and pull it out. Can you believe that? That's so mean. And we've known this for like 120 years. There's a paper from 1905 that was like, yeah, boxer crabs intentionally starve their anemones. And when I read that, it made me so mad. For most of my life, I thought these two were happily living their lives together because I heard from so many different sources that that was the case. And it was a lie. I feel so betrayed. And even anemones who don't directly rely on eating food aren't exempt from being starved by boxer crabs either. See, some anemones are in an actually mutualistic relationship with another organism, dinoflagellates. They are a type of phytoplankton, or in other words, a type of plankton that uses photosynthesis to produce food for themselves. Some anemones have dinoflagellates that live inside their bodies, and they share some of the nutrients they produce through photosynthesis with the anemone, as a thank you for providing them with a safe place to live. But remember earlier when I said that boxer crabs are nocturnal? That poses a problem for photosynthetic organisms like dinoflagellates, because you know what's famously not in the sky during the night? The sun! So what happens is that dinoflagellates that are inside of anemones who have been taken hostage by a boxer crab say to each other, y'all, we haven't been able to photosynthesize for days. If we stay here, we're gonna die. And then they bail. They leave the anemone's body and go find another one to host them. That's why so many anemones being carried around by boxer crabs are white. A lot of sea anemones aren't naturally colorful. They get their colors from their dinoflagellates. But the boxer crab, of course, doesn't care if the anemones are no longer in possession of their phytoplankton, because one, that means the anemone won't be able to outgrow the crab, and two, the anemones aren't dead. Just starving. So the stinging cells in their tentacles still work. And this is why boxer crabs have such terrible claws. Kleptoparasitism has been working so well for boxer crabs that they basically sacrificed all functionality in their claws to transform them into specialty anemone holders. To kind of drop the righteous anger for a moment, I do want to point out that this is actually an example of tool use. The boxer crabs are using the anemones as tools to help them gather food. And tool use has been seen in lots of different animals. Elephants, birds, insects, fish, all manner of monkeys and apes, including humans. But boxer crabs might also be tool constructors, which is a much more exclusive group. Tool construction has only been seen in 2 other invertebrates, ants and, well, not to brag or anything, octopuses. Along with intentionally controlling the size of their anemones, boxer crabs will also mouth at them, like they'll, quote, bring the anemones in contact with their mouth appendages. And I'm not entirely sure what that means. I don't know if they're just poking at them with their mouth parts or actively chewing on them, but regardless, it was suggested that the crabs do this because it makes the base of the anemone stalk more cone-shaped and less disc-shaped, which could make it easier for the crab to hold on to them. Some argue this is tool construction, some argue it's not. I'm not here to get into that mess because it is far beyond the scope of this video, but I just thought that was interesting. Anyway, back to the righteous anger. Oh, you know what else boxer crabs do? They literally tear their anemones to pieces. And that is not hyperbole, my friends. If a boxer crab loses an anemone, or has none but finds one, it will take it and rip it in half. And then it will carry around the 2 halves in its pathetic loser claws until the anemones regenerate themselves, which usually takes a couple days. Boxer crabs who are also lacking in anemones will not hesitate to fight with other crabs who possess them. And I really mean that. Like, look at this little guy. He does not care that his opponent is like 10 times bigger than he is. Sometimes these fights end when the anemone-less boxer crab manages to pry one from its opponent's grasp, but if it can only tear off a chunk of an anemone, that will bring the fight to a stop too, because that's all you need to grow another anemone. Oh, you poor little chunk. You have no idea the horror that awaits you when you fully regenerate. And you know what the worst part is? The part I'm most insulted by? Boxer crabs don't even box! So they're somehow even worse than Jake LaMotta, because at least he didn't lie about being an actual boxer. Well, maybe not worse. Anyway, when 2 boxer crabs face off with each other, they don't fight with their anemones. They fight with their legs! Their legs! They actually tried to keep their anemones as far from their opponent as possible for reasons we don't really even know. It's either because they're trying to prevent their anemones from being damaged, or they're immune to the anemone stings and hitting each other with them is not going to do anything, or game theory stuff that's going to take too long to explain. But the point is, these crabs are liars! They're lying liars who looked you in the face and lied! And some of you right now might be like, wait, didn't you say earlier that these crabs hit prey with their anemones? Isn't that like boxing? No, it's not. Boxing is a combat sport where 2 trained athletes of similar size hit each other with their fists inside of a roped square ring. What the boxer crab is doing is the equivalent of just sucker punching randos in the street. And any boxer who isn't a complete psychopath wouldn't call that boxing. And others of you might be like, wait, I thought they were called boxer crabs because they use their anemones to fight off predators. And that doesn't seem to be true either. Or at the very least, it hasn't been definitively proven yet. I didn't find a single paper that actually had any evidence to back up that claim, and in the paper that reviewed all the literature on boxer crabs up until 2022, they didn't find any evidence of that either. Boxer crabs have been seen waving their anemones in front of a predator, maybe as a way to scare it off because they're threatening to smack them, but there's basically been no research done on whether boxer crabs use their anemones to defend themselves against predators. Right now, it seems like the more plausible reason they have anemones at all is for collecting food. And still more of you might be saying, wait, I thought these guys were called pom-pom crabs or cheerleader crabs, not boxer crabs. To which I say, I know, but like the jokes worked better if I talked about these crabs as if they were real boxers, so shh. In conclusion, boxer crabs are lazy, violent, manipulative liars. They intentionally starve their anemones, they rip them into pieces, they make them do all the work of getting food, they give false impressions of being a nice guy by giving the anemones back rubs, or stock rubs before kidnapping them, and they don't even box. So spread the word to all your anemone friends. If a boxer crab approaches them offering free massages, tell them to hit the road. Now then, if you want to learn about an animal that actually puts in the work to get their food, then you should go watch Tierzoo's video about cheetahs, because like, they put in the work. Not only are they one of the fastest land animals on Earth, but they also have a clever way of sneaking up on prey so they can just do a quick dash to catch them, instead of chasing them them over a long distance. And they don't always hunt alone, which I didn't know. However, this video is not available on YouTube. You can only watch it over on my streaming service, Nebula. Nebula is a prestige streaming platform where you can watch thousands of thoughtful, well-made videos by our hundreds of talented content creators. We have no ads and no manipulative algorithms, so you can watch Tirzu's previously mentioned video about cheetahs without any fuss. This video is part of his Nebula original series called Let's Play Outside, where he goes into detail about the adaptations of individual animals, and Nebula Originals are videos you can only watch on Nebula itself. This includes other series like Real Science's Becoming Human, Joe Scott Presents Mysteries of the Human Body, and Wendover Productions' The Logistics of X. Right now, you can use my link, go.nebula.tv/theoctopuslady, to get 40% off an annual subscription, which will cost you only about $3 a month, or you can sign up for a lifetime subscription, which means you only have to pay $300 once, and then you have access to Nebula forever. This is a great way to support me and a ton of other creators like me. Plus, you get access to exclusive content, plus a top-tier streaming experience. I mean, it's wins all across the board. So head on over to go.nebula.tv/theoctopuslady, or scan this QR code, or go check out my link in the description to sign up for Nebula and check out all the awesome content we have to offer. And with that, thanks for watching another episode of Alien Ocean. But before we go, remember all the way back at the beginning of this video where I mentioned the class Malacostraca and how I think of it as the mafia gang of the sea? Well, since the boxer crab is a member of that class, he needs to be inducted into the gang, which means he needs a name. If you're new here, let me introduce you to the other established members of La Malacostraca. We got Nico the mantis shrimp, Vinny the pistol shrimp, Luigi the coconut crab, shout out to Marquez for suggesting that name, and now we need a name for this guy. And by the way, I didn't put him in a suit because, well, he's a boxer, right? He's not a hired goon or a consigliere or the guy who paints houses. He's like the mafia's boxing champion, but he's the boxing champion because he's a lying cheater who fights really dirty. Like, instead of sneaking weights into his gloves, he sneaks nematocysts into his gloves. I got like a whole backstory for my crustacean mafia, but I'm not going to get into it here. Anyway, leave a comment with a name for this guy. And thanks again to Dr. Brenen Wynd for being such a huge help. Seriously, he took so much time and energy to explain all this phylogenetics stuff to me when he didn't have to. And I couldn't even talk about all the things he taught me because it was way outside the scope of this video, and honestly could probably fill the runtime of a whole other video. But yeah, massive thanks to Dr. Wynd. Links to his Twitter and Blue Sky accounts are in the description if you want to thank him too. And another special thanks to all my patrons. As always, I couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for helping me keep a roof over my head so I can keep making these videos. If you'd also like to support me, you can sign up over at patreon.com/theoctopuslady, where you can get early access to my videos or your name in the beautiful credits. Come check me out over on Blue Sky and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, this is your friendly neighborhood octopus lady reminding you that you don't have to go into space to find aliens.